Hello guys, and welcome back to Getting Started with LabVIEW, and today we will look into property nodes. Now, to make it simple, property node is anything that the user can read and write properties of a control, of a VI, or any application instances. To make it simple, we actually have a Boolean control here on the front panel, and most of the time we tend to adjust the height and the width manually on the front panel before we run the code. And also we tend to select right click and access the properties dialog here, and we do the necessary changes here. However, with the property node, you can also change the properties of the control programmatically while the VI is running. Now, to do this, you need to understand the differences between implicit property node and explicit property node. If you see, first of all, the difference between the implicit property node and explicit property node is the one, how they actually look like. So like for example, if I were to go to create and select the property node here, I would right now choose the button size for all element height and width, and it will give me the cluster type of height and width of the button. So this is how an implicit property node actually looks like. And for explicit property node, you need to use a reference. So first of all, let's create a reference first. Let's create a reference, we place it here, and this is the reference for the Boolean control. Now for explicit property node, the difference between the implicit property node and explicit property node is that explicit property node is actually required when you are creating a very large scale application program where you need to constantly refer the control that you're actually trying to manipulate programmatically. And to access this, you can also create a property node here itself from here. Let's try the probably Boolean size again. So you can actually create a property node directly from there, and you need to link it so that the property node actually knows how to do it. So you can either use the create property node directly, or you can use the quick drop and type in property node. It actually has property node here, and you place it on the block diagram. So once you place it on the block diagram, it actually returns a general property node, and only if you wire in the terminal for the reference, it will actually inherit all the properties for the control that you want to use. So let me just remove this and set this here, and right now I just want to change the Boolean height and width programmatically here. And you will notice that depending on the properties of the control that you want to use, you can actually right click and see there's an option for change all to write. Here you can actually choose to read or to write. In this case, let me just set this to write and put in the value here, change to indicator, so I can see there's a cluster here. Okay, cluster, let me just put this guy here. And here you can also choose to, let me choose here to write first. Let me just do this here to write, and I want to create a control. So I actually have a cluster control here. Now if I were to run this, probably let me put here 250 and 120 here, and if I run this, the implicit property node will be able to read the value. It will change the height and width of the button programmatically, and you right now, let's just run this and see. So it actually changed as it is. So what if I want to make it much more fun, where I just put in the while loop with a button here, and the button can be here. So we can actually change this programmatically in this way. Let's make this more interesting. Let's change this to slider. I would like to replace it with a slider, numeric slider, horizontal with pointer here. That is good. This sounds good. right, replace with the slider. So this way, and we put this to 300 and probably another 300 here. And if we try to change this, and we can actually, programmatically change the height and weight using property node. So this is one way we can actually use property node to programmatically change the height and weight. And of course, there are other functions as well. So depending on the functions or properties that you want to change, you can actually do this and try to explore. This would be the pretty much a simple example to use property node in LabVIEW.